Alan's black book again. There's treasure inside, and we're gonna do another chapter. So we're on chapter 19. So just 20, 21, 22, 23, just 4 left, and then we'll finally work our way through the book. I think it's been maybe a month and a half, 2 months. Starting out, for anyone once this live video gets posted, there's nothing really major groundbreaking, I think, in this chapter. And it's not often that I'm online right after a interview gets posted. So there was an interview that I guess happened yesterday at some point, or I don't know when it actually happened, but it got shared pretty recently in the last couple hours. And so I took a shot at watching it, and then I'll have my interpretation or anything that I saw pop out. A few people have already analyzed it. Normally, if there's already been a few videos on an interview, I won't add mine just because most of the time I'm not seeing anything different. And if it is, I'll just slip it in wherever I see it applies in the lion's share book or one of the smaller books. But this one, I think there's a few interesting things, so I'll go ahead and say some stuff about it. So we're going to start with chapter 19, and then I'll speak a little bit about the interview. All right, so chapter 19, moon rocks and meteors. I don't always dig too deep into the quotes, and by quotes I mean the ones in red, like right here on these quotes right here. But there's something about this quote that it caught me for a little bit. All right, so I'll read it out. We're on page 166, chapter 19. If an elderly but distinguished scientist says that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. But if he says that it is impossible, he is very probably wrong. And so I think what got me about this quote is I didn't get it. I mean, I read a decent amount of sci-fi. I've read some Arthur C. Clarke. I've read, what's the other guy? Isaac Asimov. I've read, a couple other sci-fi authors. But I didn't get it. So I had to Google it and see what is this quote talking about. Most of the red quotes I get. I see how they apply. Even after I read the chapter, I still didn't get what the quote was. And so when I read it, I came across it's number 1 of Clarke's 3 laws, and I'm most familiar with number 3. So let me go ahead and go to a different section here, because I've heard number 3 a lot of times. And so again, as anything where there's a list, or when JCB lists a bunch of things and leaves one out, if he's going to put a quote that's number 1 in a list of 3, I think the other 2 are pretty important, right? So it's British science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke formulated 3 adages that are known as Clarke's 3 laws. And the third one is the best known and most widely cited. All right. Hey, what's up, Diego? How you doing, man? Good to see you. So here are the laws, right? And the first one is the quote. When a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. When he states that something is impossible, he is very probably wrong. Again, that one I had to do some analysis on. Oh, bye, Diego. Just stopping in. Here's the second law. The only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. All right, let me say that one more time because it flowed a little wrong. Hey, what's up, Ravi? Good morning. The only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. I get that one. Like, that one makes sense to me. Hey, what's up? That's Mom. Hey, Mom. Hopefully the chat stays PG. Yeah, what's up? Join. You're here. You're in. Here's the third law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. All right, so that's the one that I'm familiar with. I've heard that a bunch of times. I've seen it written a bunch of places. That one, again, I don't think needs interpreted, right? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? The same way if you were to take a machine gun back into, I don't know, the Bible times, that would probably look like a magic weapon, right? So that's that's there. But the first one, again, I still didn't. I'm still a little stuck on it. I think I get what they're trying to say. An elderly distinguished scientist says something is possible, he's almost certainly right, right? So if someone says, yeah, it's possible, then it can be done. But if someone says it's impossible, he's probably wrong. Again, I don't know. That quote still is going to be stuck with me for a while. And I get that in a science fiction vein, that they're always about pushing the limits, and that's what the second law is about. And in this chapter, I get that, okay, we're talking about going to the moon, which some people may have said it was impossible. And now he's, talking about maybe going to Mars, which some people say is impossible. So I don't know, is the theme there impossibility or going past the impossible? I don't know. I'm just hung up on that quote. All right, so here's a little secret. I'm a bit of a nerd. That's not me talking. That's JCB, page 166. All right, so it's interesting to me. We're in a treasure book. We're looking for treasure, and he starts out with, "Here's a little secret. I'm a bit of a nerd." Again, I don't know if "I'm a bit of a nerd" is a clue for those of you who like to use the ciphers and you need a clue word or a clue phrase. I don't know. Moving on to the next thing that really jumped out at me is page 168. All right, or he talks about, we're looking third paragraph down. There are many places where one can search for meteorites. Desert flat expanses are still the easiest and most likely place to find a meteor that has landed unnoticed to telescopes. But when our eyes to the sky pick up a sizable meteor falling, men and women chase meteorites. And then he goes on to the next page or two talking about that specific meteorite that landed in a doghouse, and that's now I guess part of the treasure. So I'm stuck on this paragraph right here where it talks about desert flat expanses are the easiest, and right before that we talk about meteorite searchers. So again, that's kind of, if we're looking for a character or a main character, and most chapters have them. He mentions Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, right? But he doesn't go too much about their background, even though they're mentioned 3 times, right? Twice on 167, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. He uses their full name. One paragraph down, Armstrong and Aldrin. And then on the next page, I thought they were mentioned again. Yeah, next page, 169, second paragraph, Armstrong and Aldrin. So they're mentioned 3 times. The first time full name, second time just the last name, which isn't uncommon to do. But he does spend more meat of the text talking about the meteorite hunters, right? I would say ever since it's all of page 168, that's when they're introduced to top 168, and then pretty much halfway down, or a couple paragraphs down to 169. So that's a decent amount. So if we're talking about, if we're looking for details and we're looking for mirrors and dual images or similarities, maybe the point here is to look at how the meteorite hunters act. I mean, they're looking for treasure, right? Their treasure is the meteorite. We're looking for treasure. Our treasure is the book. Our treasure is the boxes. And in this book, we're actually looking for details and clues. So are we supposed to follow? Is this one of the stories inside of a story? Or is this, I don't really know if the color black is actually in here, even though, yeah, we're talking about space. And the pictures, the pictures have a black and white theme. But let's look at what these meteorite hunters do and see if we can see a little bit of ourself in them. This chapter doesn't have as clean and clear-cut clues as I've seen, where, oh, it's this phrase is weird, or this word is weird, let's pick it out, or this paragraph is in italics and the other one's not, or he mentions this color. This isn't one of those chapters. This is one where there's kind of 2 stories here, and I think we will look at one of them. All right, so the meteorite hunters, let's focus on them as pretend they're us. All right, so professional, they chase around the globe. All right, they use, let's look at this sentence right here. Whether they are exploring the Sahara on camelback, walking a grid in the Mojave, grid search, right? Or arriving by jeep into the jungles of Central America, which again, we talked about Central America in the other chapters. Meteorite hunters looking for magnetism. That might help your strategy. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Alan? Hey, good to see you, man. Alan's a good buddy from the Discord. We've shared a lot of stuff in the speakeasies. Could be magnetism. Looking for something that attracts us, something that's either it's metallic, either polarized, or something that draws your eye, or something that draws a character in the text. Could all be ways of magnetism. So these guys, all right, they're using three different modes of transportation across three different environments. Although you could say the Sahara and the Mojave, maybe Sahara is more dunes and Mojave's more scrubland. But we have camelback, we have walking, and we have mechanized, motorized vehicle in the jungles. But they go to the ends of the earth looking for the gifts from outer space. Then there's that next chapter where there's many places. Although I don't think I'm not saying it's a clue to look for flat areas, because in a little bit, when we transition from this chapter to the most recent interview that I saw, we'll look at a little bit more about why I don't think it's in a flat place. Although I do look for places with low slope, so low slope would be flat. I don't know. We'll put a pin in that one. But looking on, so 2019, right? So these searchers that use three different modes of transportation to travel the globe. Then, if we're talking about magnetism from Alan Kay, they're all drawn to one location very quickly. And it's the word quickly spread. The doghouse, a small village. Again, it doesn't say how word spread, just says word quickly spread. Dozens of hunters arrived looking for scouring the area. They probably grid searched it. And looking for, this one meteorite is special because it has the amino acids present. We're talking about the foundation formation of life. We talk about, some lucky searchers found a piece, negotiated a deal. Others left with nothing but mosquito bites, such is the life of a modern day meteorite chaser. Or you could say, such is the life of us. Although I don't know if word would necessarily get out, right? So with the meteorite hunters in this story, word got out. I'm not picturing a mad scramble for a box. I'm trying to think of a way that the clues would be arranged, or a way that it's arranged so that if one person goes, other people would know. Again, I don't know how that would be possible. If it's maybe the trail entrance is highly visible and highly watched or monitored. But I think that if you found out where it was, I think you'd be able to get there without anybody else knowing. Moving on to the last page, scientists confirmed it. The Murchison meteorite landed, yada, yada. Each little landing is like a rap on our door. Again, it's not really weird enough phrasing for me to key in on it. And then we go into the overview effect, all right? So this chapter, to me, is really hammering perspective, right? He talks about when he's little, laying on top of his minivan, looking up into the sky, being challenged, being impressed, seeing the Milky Way, which I've had the opportunity to do that. If you haven't had the opportunity to actually see the Milky Way galaxy, if you've never moved far enough away, if you're in the West Coast, you can do that in the Mojave. If you're on the East Coast, there's a place in Pennsylvania called Cherry. It's not Cherry Point. I think Cherry State Park might be. It's Cherry something, but it's in like Western Pennsylvania, and it's the darkest spot on the East Coast. Probably the AT box is real near Woodstock, Bethel, New York, from the poster or Unbreakable Thread. Okay, let's say AT box real near Woodstock, Bethel. That could be, that could be New York. I mean, it's definitely along the trail. We still haven't really seen much of the musical tie-ins, which I do think one of the boxes is going to have a musical tie-in. So maybe the AT box is that one. And the poster was there a poster in the back? Cherry Springs State Park. That's it. Gwendolyn. Yeah. I got a chance to go there a couple years ago, and it delivers as promised. It's on the East Coast. I think it's like scientifically the darkest you can get. So if you haven't ever seen the Milky Way, look at the weather, plan out a clear sky, and go visit Cherry Springs State Park. It's a life-changing event. It's probably as close as you can get to on Earth to the overview effect. All right, which overview effect in the book, if you haven't read that chapter 19, talks about how all astronauts, no matter their nationality, their background, their culture, when they see the Earth from like space, the little colored marble in the black backdrop, which there's black again, it changes something, right? They talk about a spiritual awakenings, deep sadness at the visible destruction, shocked, majestic, awe-inspiring. All right, this is all from the overview effect, which he takes time to put in, which this, again, we're going to touch this in a little bit when we get into the interview, but I think that all the spots that any of the 5 boxes are are going to have something similar. They may not be in the a dark region, so they may not be perfect a night sky with no light pollution, but there's going to be something that affects either the night sky, the stars, or during the daytime, some kind of awe-inspiring view from heights, or from you just being able to see out. I mean, I was at Skyline Drive a couple weeks back on a failed boots on the ground quest, or I'd be decked out in jewels and gold right now. But there was some overlooks parked out, and you can look out into the farmland, the small towns surrounding the Smoky Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if I felt a deep sadness, but that's probably just because my own background. I've seen some pretty incredible sights. So again, and here we go to we're finishing up here 169. Perspective is worth considering. So that's like 2 or 3 chapters where he's like really drilling perspective. Perspective is worth considering when treasure hunting. And then we talk about to illustrate what can be gained, which this is the first time I've seen a chapter tie to 2 other chapters. Most of the time, a chapter ties to one before or after it, or in the case of the Emerald chapter, it ties into one earlier on in the book. But this particular chapter is talking about the next 2 chapters. There's a tie-in. So I'm okay with not finding a lot of clues in this chapter, because I think once we read the next 2 chapters, we'll be able to find out what he's talking about. I've read a little bit ahead just because I was curious, but I'm not going to spoil it for this video. We'll do each one as it goes. And then when I do the 3rd chapter, which would be, if this is 19, 20, and 21. So when I finish 21, we'll see if we can figure out what he's talking about. But again, to summarize 19, what we found is Arthur C. Clarke, right? He's got 3 laws. The first one is the quote. So let's look at the other 2, his laws. So let's talk about that, which inspired a lot of other tropes in science fiction. Here's a little secret, right? So Kian, he's a bit of a nerd. If you want to look at Star Trek, if you want to look back, if you want to tie this chapter to the chapter 1, just because of Scotty, I think that's a loose tie-in. I wouldn't tie just because of that. I will say that maybe that picture is important, which we already kind of did, talking about the mirroring aspect. Boldly go where no one has before. Again, we're going to talk about that when we talk about the interview. But I still think it's good to look at the activities and actions of the meteorite hunters as he describes them, and see how that can apply to us, both in the book and in Boots on the Ground. That's what I'm taking from there. And then, of course, the overview effect, which I think is more of a way to look at the book and a way to interpret things versus an actual, like I'm not looking for the phrase overview effect or OE or anything like that as a Boots on the Ground clue. It's just more of a way to interpret things. All right, so that's chapter 19. If I'm talking faster, I think it's because I really want to get into what I'm going to talk about next, and that is the interview that came out by Mr. Was it Timothy Schultz? Is that his name? I'm getting so excited I can't unlock my phone. Here we go. Yeah, Timothy Schultz, and I guess the podcast or the YouTube videos, the section's called Lottery Dreams and Fortunes. But JCB was on there, long interview, about 45 minutes, which is always excited, pretty good stuff. Some old stuff, some new stuff, or some stuff with some new emphasis. And here's, I guess I'm going to go in order that they peeked out to me. All right, so this one, my first one, might be a little controversial. Just bear with me. I'm just putting it out there, okay? So early on in the book, early on in the interview, he talks about how the book is separated, and everything is, the small chapters are self-contained. You don't need, and everything for the main part of the book is all over, right? Which he says the whole book has clues, anywhere and everywhere, his exact words, anywhere and everywhere, right? So we're not looking at just part 1, we're looking at everything, right? There's more treasure after that part. Postscript, prescript, introduction, the table of contents. We're looking at the thank yous, the acknowledgments, at everything. It's all fair game, all right? And he says that kind of, smilingly, I think. So there's that. But when people say, okay, so ignore the book, I get held up because of things like page 114. Let's go to 114. And again, I'm not saying, hey, what's up, Otak? What's going on? I never know what name to call you. I don't know what names are like if anything is secret or confidential. So I just go off your screen name, OTAC. I don't know. Page 114. Just hear me out is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that there's clues. Hey, Indy, what's going on, Indy? All right, that's the word. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm not saying there's clues in part 1 for part 2. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's information in part 1 that can help out. And why do I say that? Because of phrases like this. Page 114. Did I write that down wrong? Page 114, at least one of our treasures. Yeah, here we go. So paragraph starting with fortunately. Fortunately, in our treasure hunt, page 114, there's no reason for you to leave your family. Going on. Indeed, it's very possible that at least one of our treasure boxes rests not too far from you. So in some of the chapters, he talks about our treasure and he talks about the treasures. And I think he's talking about the many treasures in the lion's share. So he talks about that. Here, I'll give you the song for page 61, The Lotus. Oh, here we go. All right. There you go. Chat Indy was kind enough to just give you the song for page 61, The Lotus. So again, some of the chapters talk about the treasure, and I think it's talking about the treasure, the main treasure box. But other ones he talks about at least one of our treasure boxes rests on. So he's specifically mentioning more than one treasure box. So again, I don't think you can just ignore that, because if you didn't read that, then you wouldn't know something that applies. And there's a couple chapters, freaking out about wanting to know that one. There's a couple chapters where he does mention at least one of our boxes, or he mentions the other boxes in some way. All right, so again, I don't think and again, he says primarily. Why would he say primarily, right? People freak out about that too. But if you don't want to read part 1, if you just want to read part 2, that's fine. I think you can find the box. I'm just saying that there's a few things in part 1 that apply. All right, that's all I'm saying. So we're moving on from that one. Not going to get too hung up on it. The next thing is about the emerald, right? So early on, one of the few treasures he mentions is the emerald. Talks about how he fell in love with it. Specifically mentions the 86-carat Chivor emerald. Doesn't mention Carnegie's, right? Which maybe because 96 is eye-catching. It's good for a podcast. Although I think Carnegie, if you put the tagline "richest man in the world," that's kind of catchy for a podcast, especially a podcast focused on lottery dreams and fortunes, right? But he doesn't. He just goes with, he mentions how he loves emeralds, fell in love with them early because of the mine near where he grew up, 20 minutes away. He went on a trip there by a family friend. All that focused on emeralds. So that kind of answers my question. Why would you have 2 chapters in a treasure, and 2 chapters dedicated to emeralds, right? It's kind of repetition. You could have covered something else, something pretty cool instead of covering it twice. But hey, it's a personal favorite, so why not, right? You're the author of the book. You can do that. But it's interesting to note that he mentions the 96 carat, doesn't mention Carnegie's. He could have mentioned there's 2 in the book, or there's 2 big ones. He doesn't. So that's interesting to me. Learned a little bit about his phrasing and how, I want to clarify the statement from the very first, someone will find my 5 treasure boxes, that could be you. Does that insinuate only one can be the finder of all the 5? I don't think so. I think that one person could find all 5 if they were really lucky. But I think more than one person could find other ones. But yeah, no one's asked him that question. So that would be a good question if we get someone in front of him. Someone from the inside, a man on the inside, to ask him, man or woman. But his phrasing, the way he speaks, right? So early on in the interview, he says the word niggling, which is, it's a word, but it's not one that's commonly used that I'm aware of. But that's just how he talks. So it's good to know that even though he uses weird phrase in writing, he also uses weird phrases in his interviews too. And by weird, I mean just stuff that's not super common, at least where I'm from. So that's interesting, no doubt. If you pick that up in his other interviews, he kind of mentions the same thing. He'll say phrases that kind of like, what? I actually wrote about the jewel in the myth book. I believe that's the entire blueprint for TTI. You might need to expand a little bit about that, Indy. I'm not sure unless it's that book you were telling me about that you wrote earlier. Moving on, crossroads and rabbit holes. He mentions rabbit holes a few times. I do think that he's a fan of sending people down them. Okay, here we go. So here's another thing about how he started, which is I did a few videos on this one about how he talks about he narrowed down via the internet. All right, and that's because he has a family, so he doesn't have as much free time to just go out and explore. He has other commitments, And so he does mention how he had a few ideas in mind. So I think if you do look at some of the more majestic places that U.S. people associate with the American wilderness, I think you could get a good idea for where he talks about places that he looked at how they were trafficked, right? So he looked at the popular trails. So probably wouldn't want to, if you search by all trails, and if you have an area and if you search top 5 most popular, probably going to want to rule those out, right? So he already had starting ideas. He talks about he wants the box only found by someone looking, so not in a place where you can kind of stumble across it. What we got here, the yellow citrine diamond necklace, you use it to locate the book, and when you read the book, it's identical to TTI layout. Okay, and this is the Jewel in the Myth book. That's is this a book that you wrote, or it's a book written by the other author, A Jewel in a Myth? Okay, so that helps me out with places for, we're looking for these 5 boxes. Another thing is when they asked about if he thinks anyone's close, if you he talks about the advantages of compounding brain power in the Discord, but the way he says, and I don't know the exact date for when this was filmed, but I think it's pretty recent. But the way he says, something may be, in my mind, if I'm cackling sound. Oh, a cackling sound? I don't think there's any cackling sounds. But here, if anybody else hears it, let me know. Maybe I'm speaking too close to the mic or something. Indeed. Trying to think how I could address the cackling sound. Maybe it's an echo. Maybe I have the volume up too high. Anyways, lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? JCB, locations, finding. Now I'm trying to listen and hear it. People in New York City, I heard about a Dover tree. It's an hour and a half from Bethel. Oh, okay, I remember now. Thank you, Peace Horn. You helped me remember. So, it's just a stream crackling. You want someone to jump on and talk with you? I'm almost done. I have somewhere to be in a little bit. I don't know. Maybe next time if someone wanted to hop on. I guess I'm not really opposed to that. I just got a new phone. Also, I don't have the great bandwidth. So maybe, I don't know. Last time I've tried to do a few lives where I'm like showing screens and they don't end up working well. So anyways, let me try to finish this train of thought before I get distracted again. Okay, yeah. Here's what I'm saying. JCB is in the Discord, right? So he's monitoring us. And he's monitoring us. He's looking at it. So I think if I was a creator and I'm looking at people that are doing my hunt, and if they were close or even a general area, I might hedge my bets with a little bit of, or maybe I wouldn't. So if asked the question, hey, do you think a box will be found soon? You could say something like, well, yeah, I made one of the boxes easier. I think it might be found soon. But just his commitment, unless he has a great poker face, right? So he could not want to give anything away. And it could be that's the way he's interpreting it, is that, hey, JCB, do you think, a box will be found soon? Is anyone close or whatnot? And then he could just, try to do a poker face and not give anything away, saying, no, I think it may be, next year. And, it seemed, when asked about if no one's found the box and if he would do a second book or release more clues, he gave that some serious thought. Like, it looked to me like he was giving, unless he's a really great actor, if you watch the interview, if you look at that part, it looks like he's giving it some serious thought. So I think, maybe we're all missing this in some way. And we're not, anyways, that's something for me to think about later. But I found that interesting for you body language experts. If you're interested in just looking at how he responds to that question, maybe you can get something like that. And then what else we have? Okay, here we go. 2 more things to add. Adding and taking away clues up until the very end. So you can take that 2 ways again, right? You could so if he already hid the treasure, or if he already knew his spots, right? Because he had to do so much pre-work, so much recon, so much looking to see if it's trafficked. Find your spot. Okay, I know the spot. I'm doing the clues. And now at the very end, he's adding and taking away clues. So what does that say about the area? I mean, if he thinks it's too easy, so he's putting stuff away, and that's what he'll add later. He could add, an add-on when he talks about a series of the ebooks. Page 6. So here's another thing. This is kind of transitioning. This is kind of my last statement I want to say. Page 16 on Here, let me go get it. Page 16. All right. This will be the last thing. I don't know why. If does my stream normally have a cackle? I think I live stream about once or twice a week. So if this is not a normal cackle, then maybe it is maybe a setting or something I have. Page 16. All right. Talking about the paragraph starts with the first thing. The first thing I would advise is to read this book once through, thoughtfully, indulge in it. And then the last sentence, on subsequent reads, it will most likely become easier to distinguish clues more clearly. So I've put a lot of thought about that. How could it be arranged? Why would reading something over and over again make something pop out? And what I came up with was there's chapters that reference each other, right? And so on a first read, you might not get it. But the same thing, like when you rewatch a movie and you see foreshadowing, or you see Chekhov's gun, or you see other stuff in the movie, by reading the book 2 or 3 times, you'll start to see, wait a minute, I remember this in the end of the book, and now I'm seeing shades of it in the beginning. Or, wait a minute, I'm toward the end of the book, I've just heard about this earlier in another chapter. So that's what I'm working with right now, is for at least for the lion's share and how to interpret. There's a lot of shout outs, callbacks, back and forth. Thanks for the uploads, watching my free time. Mr. Dallas, hey, great city, 1992, great year. Yeah, no problem, man. Hopefully we'll get my cackling fixed or whatever. But that's kind of the last thing I want to talk about, is that if you are part of the lion's share, I think that it's important to read the book as many times as you can, and start seeing what references the book makes to itself, I guess is how I would say. Which you could apply that on a smaller basis to the individual boxes and see if just within those small chapters are there references to itself. Which again, that's why I really like the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole that we've been going down. I went down it some more today because it's self-referential in the Pokemon chapter. So I really like that. But that was the last video. All right, so that we're wrapping it up. Unless anybody else has anything, Bonnie, I'm afraid if I got close, he'd move it. Yeah, there's always some some people fear of that. Again, this whole thing is a trust thing. Have fun in the game, have fun in the hunt. If you're if you find yourself, I forgot who said this. I think Badger STL. I think he said this quote. So if he watches this goes out to you. But he said, he wouldn't go boots on the ground to a place that he wouldn't want to go see anyways. Like hike, he wouldn't find interesting hiking it anyways. I think that's pretty important. I really like that he said that. Can't trust those 3-letter Johns. Always stick with 4-letter Johns. Yeah, and again, I don't really think he does, especially with how he acted in this last chapter. I'm more and more I'm taking. I was a little skeptical in the beginning. I'll say that. Especially when he makes comments like all you need is this chapter, and then there's stuff in the book they mention. But I'm getting more and more Team John. He purchased the Olympic medal first, right? A lot of Ted Lasso. Yeah. I see that too. I've been watching that too. All right. What else? Anything else I missed? Thanks for uploads. Full rooster, Bonnie. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is that enjoy the hunt. If you find your solve is going to like a industrial park, probably not going to be there. If you find yourself, trekking in a swamp next to a paper mill and it stinks, probably in the wrong spot. Yeah, don't ever trust them. No 3-letter Johns. All right, what else? Anything else I missed? New York. Yeah, I'll have to do some looking into New York. Still a big fan of Vermont. Still a big fan of Virginia, mainly because it's close. All right. It's in a public park in a major city. Yeah, it could be. I mean, if it's a really well-designed, famous park, it could be. I mean, the only thing you have to worry about is the way he says he looked at something that was trafficked and he wouldn't want it stumbled across. So I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a major park in a city that someone couldn't stumble across. I mean, in Central Park, the last time I was there, there's a lot of homeless that just kind of like camp out in the bushes. A lot of stuff going on. I think he wanted to be easy for the non-believers. I think so too, Carla. I mean, that goes into the whole business aspect, the whole promotion and marketing. I mean, you want an easy win. Start out in the beginning. Get the press, get the whole belief, get the skeptics out of the way. Thank you, Mr. Dallas. Thank you. Again, as soon as I got 3 or 4 more chapters to go through, and then I'll do another round of small box dedicated chapters. I've got some stuff on the Fen box that I want to share. I got some stuff on the AT box that I want to go into. The Pokemon, I just did that one yesterday, 2 days ago, so I probably won't do that one again for a while. Yeah, no paper mills or swamps. You heard it here first. All right, guys. When the next Pokemon Live? Again, yeah, probably won't do, although I'll do a chat. I don't know about tonight, maybe tomorrow night. Well, no, tomorrow night is the K-Pro and Calazar. They do one, so I don't know, maybe tonight. We'll see how late I'm up. PNF one's the easy one. I'm toast. I don't think the PNF one is the easy one. I don't think so. What do you think about the people that say they found the box? I mean, I haven't looked too much into it, other than I think that they didn't find the box. I know they didn't find the box. But I still think they might have been the victims of a prankster. I don't know if, their info was pretty public, so I think if they were trying to be misleading, they would have been hid their data or hid who they were a little bit more carefully, because they know of all the anger that could have come out. So I think that they fell for a prank that someone else did. That's what I think about that. All right. Thanks again for joining. A pretty good crowd tonight. I think 27 was the high. Appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Again, I give or take the notification bells because I don't have a dedicated time yet. My time off from work is just so random that I don't want to. I wouldn't want to put you down that road. But I try to give some notice when I pop on. Sometimes I don't. All right, take care, guys. Bye.